All the online right are rejoicing with the supposed death of what is being called Woke 1.0. At long last, people, even on the left, are finally admitting that the 2010s were complete insanity.
Yet they're still putting this shit into entertainment.
Finally, we can answer questions like, what is a woman? Without having a circular definition. Finally, we can admit that putting men in combat sports against women is not wise. Men are now allowed to part their legs when they sit down, free from judgment. No more Zer Zem pronouns. No more drag queen story hours. We have the entire right celebrating, we have the left playfully reflecting on their past convictions, and we even have the LGB telling the T to be normal. Ironic. So, did we do it? Did we win the culture war? No. Actually, this is a sign of the right's defeat.
I don't entirely agree. I think half agree. No, there was huge blowback from the entire population, but the point he's going to make is also true.
Something that many, including myself, warned would happen if things continued the way they were going. And in this video, I go over why that is and the actual political drive behind Woke 1.0's death. And if you enjoyed, consider subscribing, it helps the channel. I said in one of my earliest videos that a right-wing revolution was inevitable. By right-wing here, I actually mean anti-woke. My reasoning was as follows. With the left's mass importation of peoples from the third world, who, by themselves, tend to be very hostile to woke ideology.
Yeah, they're bringing a lot of people into the country that do not like Woke 1.0 at all.
The liberals signed their own death warrant. The woke left somehow believed that these people, known for their tribalism and religious extremism, would perfectly parrot the liberal worldview. They didn't, as should have been obvious. This means that as the third world population grows in the West, and
yeah, the first town in the United States that elected a Muslim mayor or became majority Muslim, they banned the pride flag. Because, of course,
becomes a decisive voter bloc, they would turn on the woke liberals who enabled them and try to impose their own worldview. As, by the way, has already happened in several cities and states.
Yep.
We're in a situation where many Western European countries will become minority European within only 1 to 3 generations, with most capitals already on.
I don't think this will happen because there'll be a currency collapse before then. And then, well, when there was a currency collapse in Germany in the 1920s, you got Hitler afterwards.
Undergoing that switch. America has just a bit longer. On screen, you're seeing some of the statistics on this, caused by a mix of low fertility among locals due to both cultural factors and economic policy, and the unrelenting immigration numbers, as well as the high fertility among foreigners due to their own distinct culture, and being the beneficiaries of the West's disastrous welfare policies. Therefore, if things continue as is, the West will be remade in the third world's image within the coming decades. Naturally, that means there are only 2 broad political positions that still matter. Either A, the third world, or B, the dissident right, who oppose their presence and the current establishment that enabled their mass importation. Everything else is secondary until this is resolved. And regardless of who would win,
Crusaders, dissident right, the Crusaders.
In such a situation, they will be anti-woke. Given these
options, they're both anti-woke.
Where does that leave the left? The average woke leftist has 3 paths laid before them. Path 1, they can stay woke. They don't recant their beliefs, they continue to push.
They get more and more outnumbered, more and more hated by more and more people. And yeah.
LGBT, neo-pronouns, feminism, etc. unapologetically. Force it in schools, at the workplace, in movies, desperately trying to spread propaganda with every institution they still control to see if their numbers can grow enough. But they won't. And they'll start losing more and more to non-woke leftists or right-wingers until they become irrelevant. And when the power struggle between the dissident right and the third world really begins, they'll be the first to be gotten rid of, effectively making this option an act of self-destruction. That's always been the woke leftist specialty, so maybe they might go with it. Path 2, they become based. A niche but increasingly common option these days, a lot of woke leftists have attempted to rehabilitate themselves, dropping their pro-immigration stance and some of their more insane cultural values, and then replacing it with nationalism. The combination of their economic policies with their newfound nationalism makes them oddly and perhaps deliberately similar to certain 20th century ideologies. It's rare because so much of leftist programming is about abhorring those certain 20th century ideologies, but it does happen. Generally,
Was that supposed to be a young Hitler?
these people are treated by the dissident right with suspicion, but they can't afford to be picky with their allies. So the dissident right tolerates these based leftists, despite many believing that socialist policies are still innately subversive. Nationalism, however, remains non-negotiable. The moment one of these rehabilitated leftists starts advocating for something that sounds like civic nationalism, that is the belief that a nation is defined not by its people, but rather by the state bureaucracy,
No, that is bullshit.
they're politically exiled. Path free. They become a woke 2.0. Woke 2.0 is a term coined in recent statements by high-profile leftist politicians, and it's being marketed as a less insane version.
Well, the whole woke 1.0 ideology did a huge number on birth rates in the West. Yeah. Just larger your LGBTQ plus whatever population, the lower your birth rate.
Version of wokeness that puts less emphasis on cultural causes like the LGBT, while
And the economy, yes, of course, the economy.
maintaining the same economic policy and pro-immigration stance. That's the main difference between the previous option and this one. The previous option is loyal to their own nation and wants to bring about their supposed socialist utopia for their own people, recognizing that unlimited immigration makes the welfare state unsustainable. Meanwhile, this option is still globalist. Effectively, it's attempting to signal to the Third World faction that the left are their allies and that they're willing to abandon the positions that the Third World doesn't like. When people saw leftists admitting the death of woke 1.0
Like setting up Sharia courts in the UK.
and calling it crazy, they thought that the right won the culture war. That is false. The Third World won the culture war, not the right.
No, the third world still doesn't have that big a presence and power in Europe. A lot of them still can't vote for one because they're illegally here there, except for like Spain where they naturalized a huge amount of them, but that's the exception. And it was like gamers rejecting all the woke stuff in game. That wasn't because of immigration. That was just gamers rejecting it.
And what does the Third World faction actually want? It's varied because they're not homogenous, but they have enough aligned interests to be considered one political bloc for the time being. They want more immigration to continue so that they can continue to bring over their communities. They want more
Yep.
state welfare for them, more public housing, more gifts from the national treasury. After all, it's not their money they're taking to pay for these amenities, it's the locals' taxes. Their own tax contribution is often net negative.
Yes, always net negative. Bring in a huge amount of poor people to your country, they're going to be a drain on it. Surprise, surprise.
The Third World also wants to be able to enforce their own rules in their community,
Sharia
free
courts.
from outside interference, which is why leftist politicians placate them by having two-tiered law enforcement and judges that are significantly more lenient with them than the locals. They want to see more of their own in positions of power and authority. And lastly, they don't want to see LGBT flags or pride parades or anything of that sort, which is why leftist politicians have been so keen on no longer bringing that stuff up. The modern-day leftist campaign strategy for any place that has a large immigrant population is to simply put a foreigner from their ethnicity as the candidate and just promise all sorts of free stuff paid for by the taxpayer.
Yeah, Mamdani, excellent example of that. He's going to wreck New York City more. Well, he's already wrecking New York City, but he's going to wreck it even more.
That way, they get the left-wing vote and the immigrant vote, which is usually able to win any urban election. And all it costs them is having to not bring up the principles they've been championing for half a century. But understand, for many, this was the plan all along. The leftist leaders knew this would happen when they imported the Third World. I find the alternative hard to believe, that some of the most powerful people on the planet were completely ignorant and blindsided by the Third World's values. In truth, there was no culture war in the 2010s. There was a culture feint. While we were too distracted trying to argue what a
No. The LGBTQ stuff served its purpose. Lower birth rates. Without it, yeah, you'd have more, ethnic Europeans, ethnic Americans, and it would take much longer to replace them with migrants.
a woman is, or the fact that men shouldn't be competing against them in sports, one of the largest and most consequential demographic changes in history was taking place, and people were too busy seeing it as just one of a myriad of issues. This was a war won without a fight. And notice how naturally the champions of the 2010s wokeness have abandoned their causes, the ease with which they call their former positions crazy. Leftist politicians didn't stop being woke 1.0, they never were. They simply took on the facade that would get them elected and their agenda pushed.
No, there are a lot of LGBTQ activists all over the place that's still being pushed in entertainment. There's still a lot of believers in woke 1.0.
Because that's what a politician is, and their voters should have been aware. The woke crowd is no longer as relevant as it used to be, and a new demographic of voters have taken over their role as the base of leftist political support. The liberal then was just a useful stepping stone in pursuit of this outcome. Now, his job is done, and his services are no longer required.
Yeah, but I do agree that to the extent that LGBT activists supported mass migration, the fact that all their beliefs are being undermined by those immigrants is just desserts. Anyway, this will be a short video on YouTube. Like and subscribe, come watch on Kick or Twitch, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.